Hear that? That's the sound of the camera bump hitting the table. Back in 2014, I completely skipped the iPhone 6 just because of that tiny 0.6mm protrusions. I figured I'll wait a year or two. Apple has the best designers in the world. They'll fix it. It's been 12 years. That bump has grown 10 times larger and a $1,000 device still can't steal flat on the table. So why did this compromise become the industry standard? And why couldn't the corporation with the best designers in the world solve this problem?
But here's the real magic. They're done in phones thinner than anything we have ever made.
Incredibly thin. A phrase repeated over and over during the iPhone 6 keynote in 2014, and honestly, the iPhone 6 was nearly 10% thinner than the 5S. It truly felt impressive in hand. But the laws of physics didn't allow for shrinking the optics the same way. So, to keep improving the camera, or at least not make it worse, they had to include this tiny 0.6mm bump. But it didn't matter how small it was. The back panel wasn't flat anymore, and that's actually a massive failure in device design, a really big deal. It ruined the seamless feel of the body, it collected dust, it caught on your pocket, but most importantly, the phone couldn't sit flat on a table anymore. With their massive audience, Apple is one of the companies in the world that can single-handedly force a shift in industry standards, for better or worse. By the spring of 2015, the Samsung Galaxy S6 launched with the even more prominent camera bump. Even back then, despite the bump being so small and despite the impressive thinness of the phones, the user's reaction was crystal clear. Just make the phone a millimeter thicker. You get a bigger battery and you get rid of the bump. Even people who normally hated phone cases started buying them just to get that feeling of a solid flat device back and to hide that stupid bump. Back then I was radically against cases. I completely skipped the iPhone 6 and 6S because they just looked way too ugly to me. When I finally bought the iPhone 7 despite loving the phone, I ended up buying a case anyway, precisely because that uneven back was driving me crazy. There is a popular joke that we buy cheap $10 cases and touch cheap materials just to protect a $1,000 phone. But there is a second layer. The information inside the phone, your data and your security can be worth way more than $1,000. So they need protection too. Protection that I personally, and this is true, trust to the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. It really is true. I've been using NordVPN every single day for over a year now. From the name you can tell it's a VPN, a tool to encrypt your traffic. But beyond that, they've added multiple layers of information security, from malicious ad and tracker blocking to a built-in privacy-first next-generation antivirus. So NordVPN right now is a complete all-in-one digital security app. What does next-generation antivirus mean? The logic of a traditional antivirus is alarm and isolation when the virus is already on your device. But the modern world demands new approaches. So NordVPN is proactive. It blocks phishing links on the fly, it warns you about scam websites, and it scans your downloads for malware before they can do any damage to your phone or Mac. Secure your device right now. Go to nordvpn.com/designlovers. The link is in the description and in pinned comment. Though that link you'll get an exclusive discount and 4 extra months for free. And if you happen to change your mind, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So how did we end up here? Nobody asked for it. Users hated it when it came out. Yet here we are, 12 years later, still living with it. Probably for this, right? The marketing logic is simple. If you want great photos, you need a bigger sensor, because that's the main driver of image quality. And a bigger sensor requires a longer focal length, meaning more physical depth on the Z-axis, and optical image stabilization to the mix. It isn't just for a smooth video, it also allows the camera to shoot with a slower shutter speed, drastically improving low-light shots. And just like that, you're up to 13mm thick. It's great logical explanation. It's just a shame that it doesn't hold up. Did you notice anything when you were looking at those photos? They all great, don't they? Well, half of them taken on the iPhone 5S. And they are fantastic shots. I'll take a step further. The iPhone 5S is actually still a great phone today, both in terms of hardware and software. It's the artificial limitation, the lack of updates and the new security standards that are killing it. But older phones still run beautiful on the native operating systems. So if you think planned obsolescence is a thing of the past, back when phones would become outdated in 3 years, let me assure you, it's not. We crossed the hardware threshold a long time ago, where virtually any device from the last decade can easily handle basic everyday tasks. And this isn't tangent or a distraction. This actually explains a lot of their decisions. Both the hardware and the camera have been powerful enough for years that the average person simply wouldn't notice a fundamental difference. And for manufacturers, it's just not enough to improve only one thing anymore. They have to throw everything the wall across all fronts to keep their regular update cycle going for as long as possible, and to manufacture a desire to buy something new. The iPhone 17 Pro is a perfect example of how changing their form factor and materials is enough to convince a huge number of people to upgrade. So it seems like we have the solution right here. Just deliberately simplify the camera, make it smaller, and you get rid of camera bump while creating a perfect excuse for form factor refresh. But Apple simply doesn't have the leverage they used to. The market has become far more homogenized, and the loyalty of their core audience is slowly losing its weight as a deciding factor. Because of this, that massive camera block remains the one undeniable cultural flex that says, look, I have the most expensive Pro version. So is there no way out? The iPhone Air was Apple's first truly new phone in years, where they managed to step away from their usual marketing playbooks of bigger numbers. They tried to return the realm of tactile emotional design, but in the end its camera bump ended up being thicker than the phone itself. Why did the MacBook, both Pro and Air, transition to honest thickness, abandoning the visual tricks and marketing illusion of past generations? While the iPhone, both Pro and Air, continues to be measured at its thinnest point just for marketing metrics. Even though everyone knows that at their thickest point these are big, heavy phones. And right now, Apple doesn't have the influence to break this trend, because doing so requires more than just posing the camera arm race. It requires taking a deliberately step back. And I'm confident we'll see that step back very soon, likely not from Apple, but more likely from companies that are ideologically closer to nothing or teenage engineering, because both the numbers and the cultural shift show that we as consumers have a real demand for uncompromising, genuinely good design. And judging by the Air and the upcoming foldable iPhone, Apple just isn't capable of fulfilling that demand anymore. And that is exactly what I see as the main reason behind the iPhone Air sales flop: their commitment to compromises. Another glaring illustration of this exact approach, but with totally opposite results, is the story of the compromise and eventually murder of the Touch Bar. I highly recommend checking out my video on that.